Oh yeah, it's time for package from China, so let's go. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video we are going to take a close look at the Super Mini U-Box Megadrive. And this is maybe a product that makes no sense whatsoever, because now we can pick up like a game stick for around 19, let's say, ish dollars, depending where you're buying it and what kind of model. But this thing is also cheap, around the same kind of price. But I think this is more like an semi-nostalgia situation, where this is actually like just purely made for Sega Megadrive or the Genesis. And one of the things I was really intrigued by is just this thing comes with wireless 2.4 GHz controllers, and the quality itself is quite good, not the chemical controllers that we've seen many times before. But the first thing I've noticed that the overall quality of the controller is absolutely great. Let's begin with the buttons. So we're having the A, B, X and Y and everything, and the Z button, and they feel absolutely great. I can say that they almost feel authentic to, let's say, the original controllers. Select start, there's no turbo button whatsoever, and of course the D-pad. The D-pad is similar to the original one with the floating D-pad. I personally really love it. It's very comfortable and very pleasant to play with fighting games. It has a very nice curve to it, so it makes it extra comfortable when holding it in your hand. One of the features that we can switch between player 1 and player 2 fairly easy, so you can configure one of the controllers to a certain player. They are working with one AAA battery. How long the lifespan is of a battery depends what kind of quality battery you're putting in there. Like the cheap tube ones will give you maybe like say an hour or so, and more expensive will give you like a couple of hours. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any experience. I've been playing around with it for some time. Yeah, I didn't notice that let's say they drain the batteries instantly. But yeah, this is a low budget product, so they're not going to be putting some lithium batteries in here. So it works so far I understand on 2.4 GHz, so that's absolutely great. The downside is there is no dongle. There is no, let's say, input dongle. So you cannot use this, let's say, in a different system. So they are configured with the, let's say, let's put this in, the tiny dongle. This is actually the game system, also known as the NX engine. So this thing just plugs into your HDMI connection. You can use, let's say, every single monitor and TV that has an HDMI, but you also need speakers, of course. Otherwise, some monitors don't have the option for like speakers, so we have no music whatsoever. Input is going to be for the micro USB. This is going to be the 5V that we're going to be needing. You can get it from some of the monitor TVs, or you can use a separate, let's say, power source like a normal charger. So in here we're finding the NUPSOP, the Super Mini U-Box manual, the toilet paper manual with not a lot of explanation. These things make no sense whatsoever. But that's it. That's what we're going to have with this product. So let's put the battery in here and let's plug this thing into the television. If you have a monitor with different, let's say 2 or multiple HDMI inputs, you can use this thing fairly easy. There's only one downside to this. Yeah, so when it's plugged in, with my monitor, you can just see I cannot plug in the, let's get this thing out. It's very difficult to plug in the micro USB cable. Let me show you what I mean. See, that's what I mean. We cannot plug it in anymore because the space is not, let's say, big enough for having the cable implemented and the HDMI. So we need to get ourselves an extension. You can buy them from AliExpress for, let's say, a couple of dollars. But that's something you need to take consideration because the cheap, let's say, dongles don't have this option. Or they're not going to give you one for free. Alright guys, so let's do a quick teardown when it comes to the device. So the overall performance, I am very surprised with this. So the only thing I can do, there are no screws whatsoever. Let's get my toolkit. Let's get myself a tiny screwdriver so I can pry the plastics off. So that is the only thing that we can do at this moment. And just like finding a way to click it open, because that's the way how it needs to go. Normally I will have a pry tool, but the pry tool I'm using at the moment is too big for this. So this is the only thing that we're going to get, and it's a quite interesting thing. So over here we're going to get the communication for the wireless controllers. Ah man, they send off the information of the chip, so I have no idea like what they're using. But I find it just super fascinating. Stuff like this fascinates me, like how tiny the technology is becoming and like what you can do with it. Wireless connectivity for the controllers. Yeah, I don't know what kind of chip, but yeah, it don't need to be very powerful for 16-bit, but it runs kind of a weird Android lookalike and the operating system. Though it says here U-Box 001 version 6, so there is not a lot of information on this. So let's put this back together. Okay guys, so let's take a close look at this product and the menu, because this menu has a lot of interesting things. I really like this Android look-alike. It has nothing to do with 16-bit whatsoever. But when you're booting up, let's say, the shooting games, then we're going to get all the shooting games. And if they did a good job when it comes to categorizing this, I don't know, to be honest. It's always like the question. But they got a very nice thumbnail. Let's choose fighting. It seems to be like they added a lot of fighting games. I don't know if Beavis and Butthead is a fighting game actually, but it's quite interesting to see how everything works. Here we can go into the folder itself, so basically you can boot up a game. So that was an issue what I had with multi-game cards back in the day, and the reason is like we don't have the region on the right settings in combination with the file that you're basically using, but you can fix it. Where we go is basically going to the system settings and putting it back on the region that it's supposed to be. Ow. Alright, so we can add games to the stick itself. I just wanted to show you briefly here in this video. So you're going to get different folders. Also, when we're going to check the menu, it basically like shows exactly the same amount of different platforms that you can add your games to. It even has support for Sega Master System, or basically there are like some options to boot up the files, but they are placed in ROM. So I'm curious, maybe later on we can see if we can add some more kind of games. What is this stick capable of? Is it the same stick that they're going to resell, or is it just only a couple of emulators on this? Nevertheless, you can add games, just wanted to show you. Just plug and play and drag and drop. So when it comes to the way how they added all of these games to a certain category, it looks kind of nice. Especially when it comes to the thumbnail, stuff like that. But there was another thing I wanted to show you, which is quite interesting. But when pressing select and start in the game, we're going to get finally the option that I've been waiting for. So the quick load, quick save, we have seen it before. We're even going to get 5 slots for each game. So that's interesting. But here we're going to even have the option to have a full screen wide. And then we're going to get scaling up. In other words, it's 4:3 aspect ratio. So then we're even having the options to change out the region if you're having like different files on it. So this thing basically has everything that I always like wished for, because beginning of the review session with all this plug and play, we always was missing, even with the game system, the skill option, and we didn't have stuff like this. So they're trying to improve it. But they're after using the knob swap for some time. Unfortunate thing is that it just stopped working. Out of nothing, yep, I've tried different cable, power supplies, everything else, but no success there. It's quite unfortunate, because I really enjoyed myself some old school Sega, and this was absolutely cool, man. If you just want to enjoy some purely Sega and no other things, this would be a very fun and, let's say, cheap way to play. Yeah, but this is one of the things that happens a lot with these cheap products. Yeah, if this is actually the PCB that broke down, or the SD card, because this is another problem, they are brandless. They are using these like cheap brandless things. I think this is just one of the reasons that they are like making them so cheap, cheap every single time. And sometimes in the flash sales they're going for prices that makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, so this is what we're getting. It's a product. If it works, but it's highly possible that it will stop working after a time. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing. Let me know in the comments what is your experience with these cheap products, and it would be great to see you in the next video.